Hi guys, how you doing?
Hello.
This is everyone. Tom Dunn, who interviewed you before, Chris.
Hey, how you doing?
How are you?
I'm Chris, hi. Go on, we're in promo land, we better...
Sorry,
Might just switch
Chris,
over, guys.
yeah, can I go on the right? Sorry.
I'm gonna knock at that
Yeah.
time if that's alright.
Okay, so 5 past.
25
So,
Yeah,
grand.
or even 2
We're in quite a giggly
Is it
mood.
before I'll
They
come
have to go for.
We need that.
Are you filming already?
Probably are, yeah.
What an incredible head of hair. Let's just get it out of the way. If we had heads of hair like that, we would be twice as big.
Should donate it.
We've spoken a number of times before, right?
Yes. We interviewed you in Dublin for
Yeah.
Rock, and we did.
That was a long time ago.
It was
4 years.
just after Parachutes.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
Just before we supported you too.
that's right.
Can I just shift you over just a touch, Chris? Do you mind?
Slide.
Just-
Sorry. Yeah.
That's great. That's it.
Can we just, we're going to actually reshoot that show, you know what I mean? So I'm just going to ask you a few questions for about 3 minutes, just on looking back, leading up to this album.
Sure,
That's
sure.
okay, so otherwise the entire profile would be a new album. It sounds great, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I've only heard it once.
Well,
It
that's
sounds
all
fantastic.
you need.
I picked the right songs, I picked the same most of the same.
Did you?
Yeah, the speed of sound,
Yeah.
fantastic, great music.
Okay.
Sing clap,
Amazing,
please.
amazing.
It's exciting to be doing Irish promo. The best promo.
Right. So I was just to set it up before we talk to the album. If I'd asked you 8 years ago, just around the time, say, of the safety thing, for your ambition for Coldplay, what would you have said to me?
Well, pretty much, you know, where we are now, you know. I think.
Same thing.
Yeah.
How far did you think it was going to go though, at that point?
All the way, no question.
But we're only at the beginning, you know. Remember, you're from a country which has produced the equal greatest band of all time. And, you know, when you see someone like that, that's a long way off from where we're only on our 3rd album, you know. We don't see ourselves as being anywhere but at the beginning still.
When you look back, just to, you know, on those 2 albums at this juncture, how do you rate say, Parachutes at this point?
6.
3.5 out of 5.
More surely.
I mean, how can we possibly say?
What do you think? Is it a debut that got it? Is it, you know, I read an interview with you today, an old one, and you were saying, you know, we're a good band. People don't seem to be giving us that kind of credit. We are a good band.
I think it's impossible to analyse your band. When Paul McCartney was asked about the Beatles, he said, oh, you know, they were a great little band. You know, if someone like that says something like that about a band like that, if you sit there and go, you know, Parachutes is a wonderful, you know, it just seems ridiculous. Or you know, or Edge will say, you know, we're a great rock and roll band. You know, I think if your peers are saying that about their bands, you can't really sit there and talk about your own stuff with anything other than a detached abhorrence.
Fair enough. Well then, on A Rush of Blood to the Head, looking back on that, would you say that that's an album where your songwriting kind of came of age? Because in the context of this album, I've heard quotes saying that In My Place was the earliest song on that album, and Clocks represented a development for the band. Is that still how you would see that?
Certainly in terms of time, I mean, Clocks was the last thing we recorded for the album.
And it was the thing that made us know that we'd finished it and got to where we wanted to go. Every album so far has been, even the first one, except that no one knew what we were doing before that, but even the first one, we can hear a journey from the first song written to the last song written, and the same thing happened with Clocks. You know, it came from In My Place, and probably on our new record, the same thing happened. You know, we had a bunch of songs from early on, but we knew the album was finished only when we got to another place stylistically, which also made it acceptable to keep the earlier stuff as well.
Okay. So to go to that album and talk about some of its development, the big thing is the success of A Rush of Blood to the Head, which I imagine would have affected you in 2 ways, really. Just the fame and the success, and then the kind of the band as songwriters. But just the fame and first, what was that like for you when it took off? #1 in 11 countries.
I think we're still very lucky in that our band is much more famous than we are, generally. Certainly me, anyway. So, you know, I don't really feel any bad effects from, you know, I just think it's great. There's no, I got nothing to complain about, ever.
How about you, Chris?
You know, that's an interesting one. I think fame is kind of nonsense, and I have a whole other side of fame which I'm not that into because of things in my private life. So I don't. The type of fame that Coldplay has is amazing, but it's nothing to do with being recognised on the street or being in, the Daily Record or whatever it is. That stuff I don't really mind.
It didn't, I'm just wondering, did it make your life very difficult when you became famous? Or?
Not for Coldplay, no. When your private life becoming famous is not that cool. But if that's the biggest thing you've got to worry about, you've got a pretty great life. But it isn't. There's two very different types of fame, is what we're trying to say. One is being known for making albums, and one is people following you around when you're in the supermarket. And the one is great, and the other one is,
Okay. So, well then the other side of it then is how it affected you as a band, because the word I keep coming across in interview is that you found the 16 months of touring quite daunting. What kind of shape were you in at the end of it?
Is this for the last album you're talking about?
This is for the current album, X plus Y. When you finished the touring for Rush of Blood to the Head, 16 months of it.
What did we find daunting? I'm getting confused.
Well, just the length of touring.
Yeah.
I don't think I certainly didn't find it daunting. When we finished touring, I kind of was a bit lost and thought, what the hell am I going to do now? I'm going to go around Siberia or something. I don't want to stop.
You kept ringing up people asking for interviews.
Yeah.
I don't feel daunted.
Yeah.
We went straight back into the studio.
No break.
No.
Week.
I mean, this is what we'd be doing if we were accountants. Every night we'd meet after work, and Johnny would be in his suit, and I'd be in my suit. We'd probably loosen our ties and maybe roll up our jacket sleeves, which is of course a fashion crime. And we'd play and we'd write songs together. So whenever we have a holiday, I think after a few days, one of us will, call the other. And I mean, it's what life is so short. Why would we not spend as much of it as possible playing together?
So at that point, having finished one album and starting to work on this third album, what kind of ambition did you have for it? Or what were you hoping for? Hope to
We
achieve?
hope to make the greatest album ever. I don't think there's any point aiming for anything less.
When you've had, I think when you've had that celebrity and awards and all that stuff and money, it's all brilliant, but really you realise that that's not the most fulfilling side of it. And what is fulfilling is finding some amazing new tune, or just the thing that I enjoy most still is the four of us just being close together physically as well as emotionally, and playing and writing. And so going into this record, that was even more the focus than before, because whilst Grammys and all that stuff is amazing, it's not really the thing that's the most fulfilling.
So as you sat down together at that point, did you have many songs written already?
We had a lot, yeah. We've been writing on the road, so we had playing in sound checks, and so we had a year's worth of writing already. So and a lot of them have made it on. Well, quite
Six
soon.
of them.
Yeah, so half the album.
I think that definitely the two of us, and probably the other two of us, feel like we can't quite, although we can believe where we are because we believe in ourselves immensely, we can't quite believe that anybody else believes in us. So we're always trying to write the best next song, so that we've always got something else to validate where we are.
We felt like a new band again, I think. Really having to prove ourselves.
Yeah. It happened on the last album, it definitely happened on this album, that we feel like the album that we're making at the moment has to validate any success that we've already had, but at the same time, say fuck you to people who didn't like us. It's a twin-pronged, is that the right phrase? Twin-pronged?
So when you started though, initially it didn't go to plan. You went in with your normal producer and that didn't work out, right?
Well, to be honest, it did.
With Ken?
Yeah, we did a year's work with Ken, and we hadn't got a finished album at the end of it.
But we've done a lot of very valuable stuff.
Yeah.
The finished record is a combination of stuff we did with Ken, stuff we did with Danton Supple. So to say that we got rid of Ken, it's nonsense. We did a massive chunk of work with him, and we could never have got to the finished album without that chunk of work. But probably he would say that we had to go and try something different just because we were getting a bit lost. Not with him, but just as a band.
We'd really gone about first year in a slightly wrong way, I think. We hadn't, we just weren't close enough as a unit, and we hadn't really played a lot of the songs together. We were perhaps building the songs backwards, very much in studio land, rather than going into the rehearsal room and just knocking them out. We were kind of just layering them, really, and you lose a lot of feel.
But also we were writing a lot of songs.
Yeah, exactly.
So with Ken we really went through a filtering process, So he was amazing with us because we presented him with 50 songs. He would say,
Whittled them down.
Ken Nelson's one of those people who can politely tell you that you're terrible and you don't mind because he's such a lovely man.
So at the end of that year, there's this one where you went into rehearsals together to try and play the songs. Why did you do that, and how did it help?
Because I think the paraphernalia that surrounds you when you're a big band can often distract from the fact that you are a band. Once you start getting picked up in separate cars and separate this and separate that, and you have a producer and an engineer and 3 people doing this and 4 people making the tea, and you can sort of forget who's that guy. So I've forgotten quite where I'm going with this, but my point is, it took us going back into a rehearsal room together, it's just the 4 of us, to remember, oh yeah, this is what we really love most.
This is why we started it.
Yeah, it was like 8 or 9 years ago when we first started. We got it right then, and to get it right, that's what we have to do now, is just sit in a room with nobody else and try and impress each other with crazy chord changes.
When you started doing that, how much of this album was together at that point? Or was that
50%.
really 50%? So you still had a way to go.
Yeah.
Were you worried at all?
We're always worried about something or other. I think if you're not worried, then you should be worried. Which is, of course, great, because when you aren't worried, you start worrying.
Yeah.
So you're never not worried.
Yeah.
So you should never worry.
But when you say you had 50%, did you feel that the missing 50 was the important 50, or you had what drove you forward next, really?
Panic, I think. The realisation that the album had to be finished at some point soon, and that it wasn't there yet. It wasn't as good as we wanted it to be at that point, and so then the real sort of...
You need a deadline,
Yeah.
If you're running in a race, you need to know where the finish line is to make sure that you overtake the people in front of you in time. Otherwise you think, I'll catch them on lap 30. I'm not that I've ever run 30 laps, but you need to know there's a finish point so that you really push yourself. Even though whenever we set a finish point, we always move it a bit anyway. And the bigger you are as a band, the more freedom you have to say, actually, can we change the deadline? But we do need deadlines, and so the combination of setting a deadline and also just really simplifying what we did again was what made us able to. It makes us very creative, and we start spending all day together, and we start locking ourselves away, and it's really exciting. At the same time, it's very, very tense. And
how does it actually all work? Do you bring in ideas on piano, or how do songs come together for Coldplay?
Yeah, generally Chris will bring them in, either on acoustic, piano, or electric, or whatever, or harmonica, and then we'll...
Or with a male voice choir.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's not true, because we one song came from. We don't like to say the word jam, really, but occasionally we write from jam. The word jam doesn't sound great coming out of a middle class voice. If you say, this song came from a jam, it sounds cool. But if you say, this song came from us jamming, it sounds really kind of silly. You sound like a sort of trendy, But business now.
And at that point, what I'm trying to work out what blows you away when you're in the studio. What is it about the combination of vocals and guitar and that makes you go, this is one.
I don't know. It's impossible to say. We just show off in front of each other, I suppose, until the other person likes it. That's basically it.
Jonny will keep playing until I get completely overexcited.
I'll play something and I think is brilliant, and it'll really annoy me that he doesn't like it, and so I have to do another 50 things.
It is annoying when it's particularly annoying when Will or Guy don't like something, because they don't tell you they don't like it, they just show absolutely zero interest. So Will will be like, and if Will moves to the guitar or something, if Will leaves the drum kit, then you know that the song's no good, because he's not interested in playing drums. If he suddenly picks up a flute or something, or he's got one of those Irish whistles, if Will picks up his Irish tin whistle and starts playing it, you know that you have to change the song you're playing, because he doesn't like it.
So at that point, as you go on, I'm just wondering about some of the songs that you tell me a bit about how they kind of came together and what the feeling is about them at the time. Say Speed of Sound, which is one of the singer.
The Speed of Sound.
What excites you most about that song?
About that song, the chorus, the fact that we've got a song with a chorus. I never thought it possible that we could write a song with a proper chorus. Danny McNamara from Embrace, a band called Embrace, who's one of our closest friends, always teased me for never writing choruses. So we tried. And there's quite a few choruses on X and Y actually, and that's one of them. So that's what excites me.
We were listening to Kate Bush.
We were listening to Kate Bush. That song's in fact that song was totally inspired by Kate Bush, Hounds of Love and Running Up That Hill. In fact, Guy and myself and John were upstairs in my house trying to program before Will was away or something. So we tried to play the song over the beat from Running Up That Hill. It sounded alright.
What other songs would you pick out as personal highlights for you from the album? I'll tell you some of the ones that I really love. Low, Hardest Part, What If, and Talk.
Well, we've spent 3 years on it every second of the day, so we can't really pick any of them. We don't put anything on there unless we think it's bonkersly brilliant.
Low was a turning point for me anyway. Up until that point, I didn't really feel like I'd done anything that was any good, and so it was the first time that, and we were all in the rehearsal room again, and that then I got really excited that I thought, I can actually contribute something that's all right. So that was a real turning point for me.
There's a lot more guitar, I thought, and a lot more riffs, and you're up to more, I thought, on this album. Is that just luck? Is it just, they're giving you more space?
That's in the other albums, it's just quiet. They turned me
We
down.
did make a decision to turn Jonny up. A definite decision. Because I got sick of seeing Chris Martin, Coldplay, thinking, well, that's not really fair. Because I certainly survived because of the other three in the band, So I got sick of seeing that, and I got sick of people not acknowledging Jonny for being the best. He's for me, Edge and Johnny Greenwood and Jonny are the best three guitarists in the world, but he's the one I'd like to work with most. And I got sick of people not agreeing. Well, it's true though. Of not seeing that, because he's very humble and quite shy, except around certain ladies. But he is.
Yeah.
And also his guitar tech Matt sort of came over to me. And Matt's this lovely sort of Cockney guy. He's like, make sure you turn Jonny up this album, Chris. So that's what we did.
And does it have, we were talking about In My Place versus Clocks, do you think it has a song that points more towards the future direction?
Probably a song called Square One, which is the first song, and maybe a song called Twisted Logic, which is the last song, and possibly a song called Talk, which is the middle song, and a song called Fix You, which is the fourth song.
So it could go anyway,
It's a
all
lot of
ways.
But also we might decide that that's it.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one.
I'll get back to that. But now with the well, no, the question which everyone will ask is the delays. It seems to be going on up to the point where EMI's share price became an issue. Were you aware of those pressures, or
We were buying and selling like crazy.
we were Martha Stewarting all over the place. We've become very rich men because of our own album being delayed. No, that doesn't really make... For a while it was good to have a deadline. We didn't really care what the deadline was associated with. Keith, who's the head of our record company, or one of the heads, said, give me the album when you want, but if you give it to me before this time, everyone will be really happy with me. So we said, okay, well, we'll try and we'll set the deadline. But then when we weren't going to meet that deadline, he said, well, never mind. And then there was all this that doesn't really mean anything. To me, shareholders, it's like the great unidentifiable evil body of the, so many bad things in the world are done under the guise of having to please the shareholders. It's kind of sort of, you can blame everything on them, but no one really knows who they are, kind of thing. So if we put out an album in time just to please the shareholders, that would have been a terrible thing.
You set out, as you said, always to make the greatest record. How do you feel about it now at this point?
Certainly feel like it's the best we can do. I think we really feel like we pushed ourselves as far as we could. I think that's all. It's very hard to say anything more than that.
Yeah, it's hard to get any perspective on it, but deep down I feel very comfortable with, going and saying hello to Larry and Adam and Edge and Bono. I don't feel like we've got anything to be ashamed of. Whereas at certain points I would have been embarrassed to play anything to anybody.
You'll be interrupting the recording. You've come out of writing, kind of writing period to go off touring now. Do you look forward to that, or is it an interruption?
Absolutely look forward to it now. I mean, it's been a long time we've been in the studio, and if you'd have asked us 6 months ago whether we wanted to go on tour, none of us, I don't think any of us would have said yes. But now we feel like it's finished. We're ready to play it to people.
Yeah. So much of what we do is about playing live. Same with a number of bands. But it can really tailor how some of the songs sound when you think about playing them live. And it's really exciting. Touring's just the left hand of what we do. I mean, it has two hands. We have writing, recording, and touring, and we need both of them.
You could never see a day then when where the Beatles reached the point where they just wanted to concentrate on recording. And
We've got good PAs now.
Yeah.
No one screams at us either.
We would never finish anything though if we didn't have to go on tour, or we didn't have the possibility of playing things on tour. Because we'd always be thinking, well, we can just change this, and touring is where because we put our album on sale, but we don't sit in everybody's house while they're listening to it. So there's an element of recording where you can think, oh well, we don't have to worry about that because once someone's bought it, we don't have to hear it again. Whereas when you know that you have to play all the songs live, you want to make sure that you love them as well, because we're gonna play and listen to them more than anybody in the world.
And when you do tour, do you lose track of where you are as time goes by? When you play Marley Park in June, will you be very clearly aware of the fact that you're in Marley Park, or could it be anywhere?
We love Iceland, and we always. We are playing Marley Park. Where is Marley Park?
It's in Dublin. It's a beautiful park in Dublin.
We'll play anywhere in Dublin. Dublin is in our top tier. I don't want to say that because we're doing an Irish interview, but it's true. So we're not big enough to play Slane really. We'd really love to play Slane one day, and also the Olympia we really love to play. I don't know where Marley Park is.
It's in Dublin.
It's a nice area.
Is it the place where you can graze sheep if you have a key to the city?
No, I don't think so.
That's in Stephen's Green, right?
Stephen's Green. I started by asking you about your ambition. What's it like? What's the ambition for the band at this point? Where would you like it to go?
We would like at the moment to make the most entertaining evening in the world, because we're now at the point where we're putting our whole concert together, and that's all we're really focused on. Because, like I said, once you have awards and everything, and then you realise that isn't necessarily the answer, then you realise the kick you get out of other people's music, and then you realise that you're actually there to make people have a good time. So I just want anyone who comes to Marley Park or to wherever we play to just go away feeling like we couldn't have tried harder for them. And there's been some amazing sounds and visuals and all that stuff.
How about you?
I agree.
Same. Simple as that. You also you mentioned that it could be relaxed. You always seem to have that no guarantee that we will go on to another album. It always seems to be. Or did I get the wrong end of the stick there?
I mean, when there's, everything is so fragile in everywhere, in the world, in our lives, everything. There's no point in planning too far ahead.
But this is what you love.
Don't you, when you sit down to interview us, think this could be the last interview I ever do, I'm going to make it amazing?
Never thought that way before.
Oh no. I can tell.
I know!
But that's the way, it's just the way we approach things. Everything at the moment knocks me for six. I can't believe what we get to do, I can't believe who we get to do it with. And so it makes you want to do it as much and as well as possible all the time. And so at the moment we're not even thinking about another record because we've drained ourselves, we've put everything we could possibly think of into this one.
Very good. You concur?
Absolutely.
Everything I say has been discussed between us and speaks for both of us.
We've talked about this kind of thing quite a lot.
Great. So all I can say is good luck with the album. It's great.
Thanks, man.
Thank you very
for
much.
coming over.
I would listen to it a couple more times.
Well, I was thinking allowed to listen to it once.
Really?
It was a listening session in EMI. It's highly protected, your album.
We object to this whole listening to it once thing. But then again, we also would be annoyed if it came on the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
But then again, we don't think that you would put it on the internet. But then again,
how does it
U2's
get there?
album supposedly leaked, but I
That's the
couldn't
thing
get
you
on
need
with
to
it.
start doing. They always have a computer stolen just before they release an album. You need to start doing that.
It's true.
Guy once lost our album on the tube. Oh, that was the last album.
He left the CD on the tube saying, on the
Coldplay,
label it
new
said,
album.
it said Coldplay's second album on it.
So, but,
And what happened to it?
no, never
Nothing.
I think it did turn up eventually.
Really?
Didn't it? I think, but only like 2 years later or something. Crazy.
Works for them.
It does work for them. Everything works for them, They're the
Great
best.
band. Great band.
They're the equal best band in the world.
Great. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks, fellas.
Thanks.
And ladies, thank
You
you.
knock on the door and
Okay.
say
Jill?
Love that.
It was great fun, as always.
Thank you very much.
You all flew over for this? Thank you so
I
much.
think there's a party of around 14 which you'll be meeting.
Wow.
The
Jill?
rest of the course of the next
So
2
next
hours.
person.
These ones are always special, though, isn't it? The Planet Rock ones are always a bit.
Did you see the last one?
We don't really tend to watch our own ones back. I've seen everybody else's. I saw a great
It
one
was
with
great.
Fran and Healy and Dougie Payne.
That was great. They're such an easy thing. You almost don't need to be present. You just set the microphones, go off, have a coffee, come back, and they've told you everything.
Hey, Chance.
How you doing?
Paul, good to see you.
Hi, Paul. How you doing?
let's
Oh, I see.
talk
Are we staying in here?
Yeah, we're going to stay in
Yes.
here.
Oh, I see. And the equipment's just changing.